Okay, so we're going to talk about how to name our decimals, and then we're going to use those names to figure out what your decimal would be as a fraction. So let's start with naming both of these examples first. So if we read this number out loud, it's 243 and 68 hundredths, okay? So let's write that in word form. That's how we name our decimals. So we're gonna write 243. We learned early in the year that a decimal means and. So we're gonna use that word and to represent our decimal. Then we have 68 hundredths. The reason why we have hundredths is because there are 2 place value spots after the decimal. Okay, now let's name our second decimal, and then we'll go back and we'll turn these decimals into fractions. So if we read this number out loud, we would have 20 and 436 thousandths. Okay, so we're just going to write that out. 20 and then we have 436 thousandths. So 436 thousandths. And then again, the reason why we have thousandths in this number is because there are 3 place value spots after the decimal. So now that we've named the fractions, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be turning these decimals into fractions. So the first thing we need to figure out is what is our denominator going to be. So we're going to look to our numbers and we're going to use the place value that's all the way to the right of your number. And that's what's going to be the denominator. So we have 68 hundredths in this example. So hundredths is actually going to be the denominator. But we don't write hundredths as a denominator. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to write 100 as our denominator up here. Okay? So we have a denominator. When we have a fraction, we also need a numerator. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to use whatever number is to the left of our denominator. That is going to be your numerator. So we have 68, and that's going to be your numerator. And the reason we're using this as the numerator is because this is the number that is to the right of the decimal. We're only talking about this part of the whole right here as far as our decimal goes. So our numerator is going to be 68. And then in this instance, we have a unique situation because we also have a whole number involved as well, 243. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using 243 as our whole number. So I'm just going to write whole underneath that, and then we'll write it next to our fraction. So really what we're doing with this decimal is we're turning this decimal into a mixed number or a mixed fraction. So let's take these same things and apply them to the next example. So first thing we're going to start with is the denominator. We're starting all the way to the right with the place value. So that's where our thousandths position is. So that is going to be the denominator. Now again, we're not going to write thousandths, but we will use the number 1000 as our denominator to represent thousandths. Okay, now we have to figure out what our numerator is. So let's write this out actually. All right. So again, the number that is to the left of your place value spot, that's going to be your numerator. So in this instance, I wrote it on 2 different lines, so it's a little bit trickier, but if you look at this number, there's 436 thousandths. So that 436 is what is going to be your numerator. So we're going to write 436. So 436 thousandths is how you would say that fraction. And then again, we have a whole number on the left side of our decimal, which is 20. So we're going to write 20 as our whole number for our mixed fraction. So if you had an example where you just had a decimal and you had to turn the decimal into a fraction, let's do that really quickly. I'm not gonna erase, I'll erase the whole thing. Oops. Okay, so let's say we had a decimal and we had the number 45. So we have 45 hundredths, okay? We have 2 place value spots after the decimal. So that tells us our denominator is going to be 100 because we are talking about hundredths. And then if we use that same concept that we did on the other fractions, the actual number that is behind the decimal is going to be what the numerator is. So this is 45 hundredths in decimal form, and this is 45 hundredths in fraction form.